But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall, and did it my way.
What is up, YouTube? This is Enzo Iron. I'm doing the second episode in a series that I had previously called Words of Wisdom. I'm going to rename it and just say My Way, because I realized a lot of the advice and things like that I'm going to give really are their experiences that I've had and ways for me to get through problems based on my personal experience. So I'm renaming it My Way. The idea is that those of us who are creative, those of us who are either metal workers, sculptors, or somebody who's a creative person who likes to watch some of my stuff, we are doing things on our own terms, and while we might rely on others for our work, we're kind of paving our own way. So I'm renaming this series My Way. I hope you guys get something out of it. Today I'm talking about something that's probably one of the most important things that I personally have to talk about when it comes to my process and a major obstacle I've had my entire life and will probably continue to have my entire life, but I've come up with healthy ways to overcome and deal with that. That obstacle is what I like to call creative paralysis. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm more of an artist now than I have gotten to be in my professional life. I moved from doing structural and ornamental ironwork, where I worked for a company. I learned a lot of skills. I did some amazing creative work, but I had a day-to-day routine. I had clientele. I went through architects, even with my own company, to create and develop something. Now I'm on my own. I'm creating and developing my own things while I still do some ornamental work and contracted work. For the most part, I'm trying to put something out there that people will want to buy. So I'm back in the vein of having creative problems, and work paralysis is what I call the major problem that a lot of us creatives and artists face. Work paralysis happens essentially when you are motivated mentally, you are ready and in a place to actually get some work done and do something creative, and you just can't do it. I think writers really consider it like a writer's block. I kind of consider it the same thing, except instead of not knowing the correct words to write, the problem generally is you don't really know what to do first. And I think creative paralysis comes in two types. The first type is, I think it's where we all start off. It's where we start to have some creative thoughts. We have the ability and time, or the necessity where we have to make something, and we don't know where to start. And that kind of paralysis to me is really an idea of having too much freedom. And so because you can do anything, you end up doing nothing. And that's been a problem my whole life. When I was younger, I thought, oh, maybe I'm just depressed or whatever, when I would sit and try and think about what to do. And I realized my biggest problem is having too much freedom when I give myself the time to create. So this first problem of having too much freedom, I think there's two ways to defeat that. The first one is a hard way to embrace, but sometimes it works. And I learned this from a very important mentor of mine. His name is Jay Hooley. He's an amazing sculptor. Was an amazing sculptor professor at Ramapo College, and definitely a mentor of mine and kindred spirit from who knows how many lives ago. But he told me when I would come up to him with some issues I was having creatively, just make shit every day. Make something, and if it sucks, keep making it until it's done, and then make the next thing. So the idea here is to just produce, if you draw, to draw. And if you've got to go through three things, if everything you draw that day you throw out, who cares? You're practicing and doing what you do. Now obviously you need to try and make money, so there is kind of a goal and a timeline here, but the idea is just to create. Sometimes that can get you out of a rut, that can get you seeing an aspect of something you like and give you a direction to go. If that doesn't work, which I promise you most of the time, unfortunately, it just won't. It's too simple a solution. The other thing I tend to do, and it works for me, is to give yourself limitations. Put blinders on yourself to allow some creative problem solving. If I have some problems to solve, I tend to work better and work faster. So some of the ways I put blinders on my work, for example, is I'll give myself a time limit. This is something my father has taught me. He always says, you know, a goal is a dream with a deadline, right? I think that's something a lot of us have heard. In a way, you're kind of doing that. Set a time. Say, I want to make a product or an item, a piece of artwork, and I want to do it in 2 weeks. Well, a lot of your ideas that you could maybe come up with, you can't do in 2 weeks. So all of those ideas are gone. Now you're left with, all right, shit, what can I do in the next 14 days where I have a finished product that I can make some money off of or get seen or whatever your goal or objective is. For me, I like nice things. I want to put food on the table, so I want to earn, I want to be able to sell something. I want it to be a piece of me, something that's creative, but so anyway, by putting a timeline or a time limit on yourself, that's one way you can kind of force yourself into a direction. Another thing you can do is actually restricting your medium, meaning the materials you're going to use. So if I'm making a sword, for example, and I don't have much to work with, I only have some old buffalo horn, this type of metal, and this type of metal. Well, that's what you're going to do. Use that medium restriction to limit what you can do. Now you know, okay, I have these materials to work with. When I'm designing something, I have to stay within that restriction. To me, that kind of problem solving, it engages me, it engages my brain, and it makes me think like I'm doing something. It fools me into thinking I'm doing something before I even start, and that actually tricks me into getting moving, getting an idea moving. I think the third way you can add a restriction is your audience, meaning who it's made for. If you're a painter, for example, and you want to get your work out there and you really need to make some more money and you're working on success, but you don't know where to go, you don't want to compromise with your style or what you want to get out there. But one thing you can do is think about your audience. Well, if you really would like a painting in this gallery or in this restaurant or from these buyers, think about that audience and what they would like, and try and give yourself a goal of painting, for example, to satisfy that crowd. If I'm making hammers, for example, which is something I'm doing now, which is making me some good income to allow me to do other things, what audience do I want to target? Well, if I want to target, say, knife and sword makers, okay, now I was sitting here not knowing what to do and what to design. Well, okay, let's make it for knife makers. Well, now I can come up with dog head hammers, for example, a Japanese bladesmith's hammer. Or I could come up with some specialty hammers that I know that a lot of knife makers don't have. You can't buy it in a store. You have to make your own or know a blacksmith who can make stuff. So what I've just done is I've just given myself a project and said, okay, let's make stuff for these people. If you look on my Etsy, on my store, I sell beaters, which are ironworkers hammers. It's the nickname for them. There's a few little things that make them custom to what ironworkers do. And ironworkers either have to do it themselves, which most do, or if they don't have time to, if they don't have the skills to do it, they might buy it from somebody else. So I saw a need for those hammers, and I made them. I gave myself my own project by limiting my audience and saying, okay, ironworkers, what would they need? I also thought about doing some shipping hammers for welders as well. That's something I'm going to be coming out with. So again, those ideas developed by choosing an audience, and that limited what I could do. I'm not going to make a repoussé hammer, a hammer for doing fancy French leaf work for ironworkers. The ironworkers only deal with a handful of hand tools, really. So if I'm going to make something for them, I can only make these things. Well, now that's given me a focus. So I think that really, those are the two methods for solving creative freedom where you have, creative paralysis where you have too much freedom. and that is either just forcing yourself to make things until something clicks, or the most likely way, which is putting blinders on yourself, forcing limitations, and forcing you to solve problems, which will end up kind of guiding you in a direction. So that is the first major way that I think a lot of creatives get paralyzed, and that is too much freedom. The second and last problem, I think, when it comes to creative paralysis, really is fear of failure. I guess I'll call it that. And that's what I'm actually going through. While I just overcame doing that, that's something that's going to happen all the time. I generally, out of necessity, because I have to make money, I don't run into that first paralysis quite as much. I'm always hustling, so I generally don't run into that too much freedom thing. Although when I was younger, it hit me all the time. Now, my biggest hurdle is this second type of creative paralysis, which is being paralyzed because you're not sure that it's going to work. In essence, you have a fear of failure. And that's a big thing, because what that's going to do is it's going to have you second guessing things. You might make and remake things over and over and over again because you don't think it's going to work. Or sometimes it'll stop you from making to begin with because you're not confident in it. It's a trickier problem to solve because it takes a little bit more work on your end. And it runs into my first solution for that kind of a problem with creative paralysis. And that is, you've got to do some research. You have to get out of your studio, get out from behind your computer, get out of your workshop, get out of your head, go out into an environment or hang around people that would get by, use, or surround themselves with what you want to produce. So if, for example, you're an ornamental ironworker and you're trying to get some stuff made, you're not under contract, you're looking for work, drive around areas that have amazing metalwork, get some ideas, try and go to meet with architects, go to conventions, whatever you can do to get in an environment around people that might get your work. And that's a form of research. You're not just wasting your time by meeting and networking and things like that. Networking is more like spying to me. It's important for you to know and meet other people. And those people, if you're a stand-up guy or stand-up girl, they can end up helping you out, and you help each other out, and they can turn in amazing collaborations and things like that. But to me, a major part of networking, and a majority of networking, is kind of, it's infiltration. It's seeing what's out there. It's not the idea of spying on someone and taking an idea, but rather seeing what's successful, seeing what people are doing, and sometimes out of the end of that, you'll see what people aren't doing, okay? If you're a sculptor and there's a lot of people who do figurative work, which perhaps you're into, and you feel like maybe you want to do this idea, but you haven't done it because you feel like you've seen too much of it out there. Well, don't think. Go out there and see what's done and see what's missing. I think a good question to ask yourself is, what would I like to see that isn't there? And then you could try and answer that question by plugging in your own work. Okay, well, what isn't there, and how could I add to this? And sometimes the answer to that might be, actually, this idea I had has been done. It's been done, and as much as I'm committed to it, I can't really add to it. I can't think of a way to make it uniquely mine. I need to move on from this idea, and that's okay. Now, that might seem like maybe you're giving up, but you're not. You're admitting that you need to reevaluate, readjust, and move something in a different direction. At least what you've done is you've been able to give up an idea that wasn't going to work to begin with. So you can get on to moving on to something else. Other times, and I had this experience at my first blade show I went to, as I'm going to start getting into making knives and some everyday carry items, things like that. I realized that the collectors will collect no matter what. that they, as long as it's well made and it's a unique idea and there's a story and a passion behind it, which as an artist, that's all I can think of doing, they'll want it. So there's a demand there. I realize that creators in that world are very positive, they're very supportive, and as much as it's competitive, there's plenty of room and plenty of learning in that environment. So I learned that I could also develop my ideas by the networking I made through there. The last thing I noticed is that there was a little bit of a hole. There's an aesthetic and a style and a use that I really would want for myself that doesn't exist, and I think that it could be desirable. So for me, that research, which is this whole concept of getting out there, getting out of your element and doing some research, it validated my idea. And that's the idea. By doing research, you need to either validate or get rid of and scrap the idea you have. And that's going to help you move on and either commit or come up with a different strategy and come up with a different thing. Again, this comes, artists can create art for art's sake, and I believe that that's fine, but bottom line is I want to put food on the table and I like nice things, and most of us are like that. So even as an artist, we still have to make things that people like. But yeah, in essence, Blade Show validated my idea completely, and that's really what you need to do. You need to validate and commit to an idea, or you need to eliminate it as being something you don't think it's going to be successful, and move on to another idea. I think the next step in that, you have to repeat that process of getting out of your element and seeing what's out there. And when you find an idea you really like and you think will work and you commit to it, you do have to be obsessed. I had a friend from a long time ago tell me that, if you want to be successful, you have to be obsessed with what you're doing. And you can't do that unless you commit to an idea. So that whole idea, that whole problem of being paralyzed because you're afraid of failure, you have to eliminate that doubt. You have to do your research, get out of your comfort zone, go to conventions, talk to people, see what's out there. You don't want them to command your idea or decide what to do for you, but you're going to use that as a human being to influence what you can and can't do. If you're a social person, this will come naturally. It kind of does to me. If you're not, it's going to be a lot of work. It means you're going to have to, unfortunately, go very far outside your comfort zone. But it's going to benefit you, and it's going to support you. And as much negative as there is out there, you're going to find a lot more positive if you're receptive and open-minded. And hopefully you're going to get a thicker skin about your work, because we all hate the work we do, all of us. As artisans, as artists, we always hate what we put out there to some degree. We always think we could do it better or whatnot. So the person that you look up to as a creative also thinks that way. And you're all on the same page, you're all on the same level. Get out there, see what's out there, do your research about what you want to do, and commit to a damn idea. Because that commitment can then become an obsession, and that obsession will equal success. So yeah, that kind of wraps up the whole idea of creative paralysis. There's having too much freedom, too much freedom to do anything you want to do out there, and so you end up doing nothing. In which case, you either gotta put blinders on yourself, give yourself some creative problem solving to do, limit your options, and try and create an idea based on those just made up limitations. The other way is you can just try and create, and hopefully work your way out of a funk. And then obviously the second way, which is a little bit more of a mature problem, I think, and that is basically a total fear of failure. And really, you have to go out there, research, you have to validate for yourself that there is room for what you want to put out in the world. And once you've found what you need to either validate it or rethink, you need to commit and be obsessed. That is absolutely a valuable thing I've learned. That's how I'm able to do it my way right now. Thank you for listening to me. By all means, like and subscribe this. Your support is huge at this point. I'm not trying to become a YouTube star, but it is something I'm trying to get out there. It's another outlet for me, and I hope that people gain something valuable from it. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them. And if even better, selfishly, if you have any ideas on how to get through some of this creative paralysis that I didn't mention, shout them out, because I am all about listening to new things and new ways to get through it. This is stuff that a lot of people don't talk about because they kind of get self-conscious about their process. They think it makes them look weak. You're not. You're a human being. We all go through it. We go through it, from bloggers and sculptors to ironworkers on the iron just trying to be happy. We all go through some kind of these problems in our lives. And it's good to talk about them and get them out there. So please comment. I will respond to absolutely everything you guys throw at me. And I hope to see you for another one. I have some very big projects coming out this month, and I hope to be putting out a couple of videos this month of me making some pretty cool stuff. Thanks for your time. Keep on killing it. Keep making cool stuff. And always do it your way. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not.